Hello and welcome to a new episode of Ghoulish. I am Max Booth, a host, and today on the program I am talking with Scott Beggs, a writer and editor known for his contributions of Mental Floss, Nerdist, and other fine websites. His short fiction has also been in anthologies like Popcorn Fiction and Mythic Magazine, and also the latest issue of Dark Moon Digest. That would be issue 39 of Dark Moon Digest, which is the magazine that myself and my partner put out 4 times a year. And guess what? It's time for a new issue. The issue that came out last month, actually. Dark Moon Digest, issue number 39. That's 39. And yeah, Scott Beggs has a little short story in it called As Well as the Infilm, which is about black market organ harvesting. And to write this short story, he did a lot of interesting research into the underground community of organ harvesting. So obviously I had to get him on the show and tell me all of the juicy details he uncovered in the process of writing this short story. So hopefully you are interested in how the underground organ harvesting community operates, because we're going to get deep into it. And if you like this episode, hey, go pick up the latest issue of Dark Moon Digest. I'll have a link in the show notes. Click it, go buy it. It's a good magazine. It's a good short story. And you know what? This is a good podcast. So buckle up. I mean, assuming you're driving. If you're not driving, you don't have to buckle up at all. Lounge, if you please. Lay back. Relax. Don't buckle up unless you are driving. In which case, hey, buckle up. Alright, let's listen to this episode now. I've talked too long. Isn't that right? Scott, thanks for doing this, man. It's been a long time, and I'm glad to finally talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
We just published a new short story of yours in the latest issue of Dark Moon Digest. And now, you recently posted a blog on your Medium account talking about the background of the story, and I immediately was surprised to discover it took you 15 years to write this.
Yeah, it's I think it's a little sad to think about it in terms of it taking it 15 years if I were actively working on it that whole time. But the good news is that, I don't know, the bad news, the good news, I'm not sure, but I had the idea for it 15 years ago. I was actually in college at the time. And I had multiple friends of mine were either trying to get into med school or graduating med school. And one of them was telling me about a situation, basically that if you graduated medical school but didn't go find a hospital to work at, then you had to wait another year and try again. And they call it matching. You match to a hospital, you try once, and if you don't get in, you kind of wait a year, you try and pad your resume a little bit, and then the next year you have another shot at it, and then most people that take that second shot, if they still miss again, then like that's kind of it, and they've all of a sudden gone into $250,000 of student debt and don't have a job. And so it was pretty terrifying, and I thought it was a really interesting like entry into what could have been like a fun, weird, underground, dark comic world, and it just never clicked. Like I could never get it going, and the big reason was that I just didn't know who the character was, and even though I did a ton of research about the world, I still didn't know who this person was that was at the center of the story. And so it was on the back burner for a really long time, and I really started working on it like in earnest for like a couple of years ago, and kind of mined my way through it, try to figure it all out, and then it finally clicked when I was taking Richard Thomas's short story class, and for whatever reason, he really liked this hook, this idea that this med student, otherwise really really talented, just doesn't get in with a hospital, and at the start of the story, she's trying it her second time, and then that fails. She is basically opens herself up to being recruited to go cut out body parts from dead bodies and give them to people that need them, like an avenging angel to cut down her debt. And so he liked the hook, and I kept going with it, and it was just, I discovered who the character was through that process, and all of it fell into place.
I'm imagining like a biopic being made about the process of writing this story, and just every single day waking up, spending from dawn till from the morning until night, just writing, sitting in front of a laptop and just ruining your entire life. Shedding any sense of family you once had, being kicked out on the street. But yeah, the reality isn't as exciting, huh?
Well, yeah, it's basically all of what you just said, and then the result was about 4,800 words. That was it. 15 years, lost everything, and that's finally it. But the good news is, the silver lining is, y'all accepted it for publication, and I'm like super happy about that, because it's a great magazine, and I think it's a good fit, and I'm super super happy that my story's in there.
Yeah, we will stoke to read it. It was a great story. Obviously, I mean, we accepted it. Imagine if I was like, yeah, well, we didn't like it, but
Yeah,
we had some
that
money to
would be like
kill.
most. That would be like most of my stories. So
Aw.
it's a big pile of rejections normally. So
Well, not this time. What type of research did you do? Because this is about black market organ Helvestein. So, like, what did you do to prepare to write this?
So, like I said in the Medium post, like part of the way that I procrastinated in doing this was by doing research. And it started off really legitimately. And then at a certain point, I recognized that I was just wasting time by trying to get more and more granular and trying to like get in more and more details about this. But I'm not an expert by any means. There's just a ton of info online, and World Health Organization and others, academic journals and stuff, even just press, The Guardian or Atlantic, like they do stories from time to time on how this stuff works. And I also read like blog posts from actual med students who did not match with hospitals, like people who failed twice in a row. And there's like a blog out there from a woman who graduated from med school and never got into a hospital setting. And it's very like the thing that I was looking for in the story is like it could have been like a slick, cool story, but I think that the reason it goes into the horror genre is that there's like a genuine fear about investing so much of your life into something, and then even accepting debt, like a massive amount of debt, like more debt than I can imagine having, and then having nothing to show for it at the end of it. And it's like a legitimate fear. And this also happens to people, like it's real. And then on top of it, the black market of organ sales is real too. And a lot of it deals in exploitation on both sides, people that are desperate to get this organ and people who are desperate to get money. And the thing that they can sell is a kidney or a liver or something along those lines. And it's a really interesting like subsection, like underground world that exists. It's not massive, but we also, well, I say that, but like we can't really fully understand how big it is. And it's basically one of those situations where the system, as it is, like there's just never going to be enough organs for people. That's never going to happen. And so then you like graft on this like human element of a human, structure to how they want to match up organs with everyone else. And as I was doing more and more research on that and discovered that, effectively, if you are on one of these waiting lists, especially in the United States, that's like my focus is the US. But like if you are on one of these waiting lists, you really are hoping that other people die before you. Like that's the mental position you're put into. Is I'm 100th on the list. I really need to get 99 people out of the way because timeline wise, only a handful of us are going to be getting these organs. And so if I can get myself boosted up to one, that's great. But in the back of your mind, the way you get boosted up to the top spot is if, the handful of people that get their organs and then a lot of other people that die ahead of you. And so that was like, that became through the research, like understanding that became like the core of both the story and the driving sense of it. And also I think where a lot of the terror comes from.
That is a grim thought. Just hoping 99 other people die and before you end up dying. And I agree with what you said. I mean, yeah, the organ stuff is terrifying in the story, but what's most horrifying and realistic is the not matching and going into so much debt. I had no idea about the if you don't match twice, you'll basically fucked. That was a surprise, and I mean, really interesting and just so frustrating too. I mean, this goddamn system.
Yeah. I mean, that's it, right? That's the villain of this piece, right? Is the
Yeah.
system. So, I mean, so the main character, Jay, like, she's super smart. She's obviously resourceful, and she still doesn't match to a hospital. And when she gets into this world, she starts dissecting, dead bodies. And this was actually the element of her going to do these jobs in funeral homes was like right out of the research. It's definitely like people who will trade in organs out of funeral homes. And there was a famous case a couple of years ago of two brothers who ran a funeral home who were arrested because they had sold something like 400, bodies, like straight up bodies worth of organs out of the back end of their funeral home.
Oh my god.
And yeah, it's really it's disgusting and it's terrible, and yet the system is still the villain. It's still that lack of organs is the villain itself, and it has created this need, and capitalism has decided to fill that need by saying, great, if you need a kidney to survive, then we'll find a person who can do that, whether it's someone who's unscrupulous and is going to steal it from a dead body, like literal, like straight up grave robbing. Like, I mean, that's what it is, modern day grave robbing. And then also, someone who is desperate enough for the money that would go under surgery to sell a kidney to you. And so those two situations are definitely reflected in the story. And, obviously things, she doesn't match. She's in like $250,000 of the debt. She starts taking dead bodies apart, and like, that's it. Happy ending, right? Like, that's it.
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
good. It worked out. So.
It's what you call a Disney ending in the business.
Yeah, it's the musical. There's a huge musical section in the short story, the lyrics and everything. It's very interactive too, so you need to sing along with it.
I was surprised to find out how many words rhyme with kidney.
Yeah, you're surprised because you think it's maybe one or two, and then I came up with 34 different words or phrases,
At
and it's just,
least.
look, you got to read it, you got to buy the issue to read it. But I think it's impressive. I appreciate you saying that.
Oh, no problem. I think I would be okay if someone grave robbed me. It wouldn't
Wait,
affect
why?
me.
Wait, why?
I mean,
Why?
I'm dead. I don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. That's fair. But like, what about your loved ones? I'm sure they would be upset if your body were torn asunder
I mean, I don't
for
know.
profit.
What are they doing with my body now?
I don't know. So, what have you thought about this? What do you want to happen to you?
Uh I've went ahead and drawn up some documents I need to get signed. I basically want my body to become the scavenger hunt.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, just cut up into tiny pieces and dispersed around the country and hidden in funny spots.
Oh my God, the entire country. Okay, so I was thinking like I was thinking small time. I was
No.
like it's going to be in the city, or but that's the whole country. That's impressive.
Yeah, like, do you know how sometimes to promote like a well, this used to happen more often. Like online, you would come up with these little games. Well, you would have to go to different websites and find secret codes that would give you a new clue. I can't think of the actual name of it now.
It was like geocaching.
Yeah, like that, but with my body.
So okay, let me ask you: did you when you growing up, did you hunt for Easter eggs?
Yeah,
So like mom and dad would like hide the Easter eggs, and you go find them, and maybe they hid 12 Easter eggs, and you came back with 11.
I would hunt, but I never found any, and I realized that they were lying to me, and they just wanted me out of the house.
Right. Well, that's smart though. That's
Yeah.
good. So I just imagine this happening with your body. I imagine happening with your body parts. Like basically, like we do this scavenger hunt, and then a week goes by, and then we come back and we've got all of them except like one piece, and it's just lost and rotting forever in whatever like the Grand Canyon or some museum. Where are you putting these things?
Mostly fast food establishments.
Like, uh, this is what he loved. This is what he loved in life.
Taco Bell.
So yeah, and
Have you?
there's gonna be like your thigh is gonna be in a Taco Bell bathroom in like Muskogee, Wisconsin,
Yeah,
until
well,
it's for like a year until it's discovered.
my thighs have been in many Taco Bell bathrooms, so it's okay.
It's gonna get it's gonna get reused into the Taco Bell.
I hope.
They'll find a use for it.
I hope it gets dipped in some type of a radioactive waste and just mutates into some type of monster that is out for revenge. That'd be pretty cool.
Why revenge? How do you see yourself dying?
I mean, there's no telling at this point.
Right.
I
What of
had
the many enemies you've made?
There's always need for revenge somehow.
So it's either like Max died peacefully from natural causes, but still gonna get revenge on the system.
Exactly, because man, if you don't match twice, you will screwed, and that's not cool.
Because there's all these other med school students coming up behind you trying to be doctors too. And if you really want to like read this story and get like scared from it and then be frustrated by it, because student debt is like a true fear, right?
Yeah,
And go like do some more research, like just read the story, get scared, and then Google about the like cap limits on doctors, and then get more and more frustrated.
and then
So
what? What should they do then?
like to get more and more frustrated, go eat a Taco Bell. Do
Find
something.
my thigh.
That's the next step in the process. Find Max's thigh. What's the reward here? Is it just like the joy of hunting for your body, or is there something? Is this like a Willy Wonka thing,
Well,
where you?
that's the secret. Once you connect all the pieces, something happens.
That sounds so ominous. Something happens.
Something happens. I'm not gonna spoil the surprise, but you're gonna want a raincoat and three towels.
So they inherit perpetual motion.
Yeah,
That's what it is. You need that raincoat for publishing because it's shitty out there.
it is shitty. Have you thought about what you want to happen to you when you die?
I've thought about it, and I don't have anything like specific. I don't know if it's like the same kind of apathy that you have, where it's just like, well, I'm gone,
Yeah,
so I don't know. So I think it really will be like I would rather leave it up to like my closest level, like my wife, to just be like, hey, like what will bring closure to you? What should we do? Because then and then that it's someone else who will actually be receiving the benefit or the closure of what it is. I don't have like a fun, like, I don't want to be shot out of a cannon or anything. Because I always like, people say that as kind of a half joke, but the picture in my mind of someone saying, oh, I want to be shot out of a cannon is like, the body's not going to go that far. Like, people think it's going to be like a circus. Like, people think it's going to be like this circus event where someone gets shot out and they can, because their body, because like the guy at the circus who does it has like strength, right?
Yeah.
And working muscles at the time. And so they shoot out and there's, propelling, and then they can tuck, and I know it's like 20 yards or 30 yards or whatever. But like a dead body with just no muscles, like nothing working, is going to be like if you threw a sack of potatoes like as hard as you could from your room, it's still going to flop around midair and then crash land in a just grotesque pile of potatoes. The potatoes aren't that grotesque, I guess, but transplant it to the human form and see what happens.
I've thrown some potatoes, and yeah, it can be grotesque.
Yeah, depends. I mean, if you're throwing the potatoes in the Taco Bell bathroom,
I
it's
can't
gross.
think of any other place I would throw potatoes. Yeah.
That's a good point. I don't know. I don't really think it's a thing that comes up naturally outside of the bathroom setting.
Did you have any specific details or cool? I don't know if "cool" is the right adjective, but a cool trivia about Ilgen Halvestein that you wanted to include in what you wrote, but you just didn't have a way to squeeze it in.
We're using a lot of great language here for
Thank you.
squeezing it in. Yeah, that's good. Um, the thing about the research that I did like a couple of years ago, back when I was thinking about it being more of a, like, I just read the Breaking Bad pilot and was looking at turning this into a teleplay and turning it into a pilot pitch. And I thought, okay, like a person genuinely good, like skilled and smart, in over their head, like gets into this illegal world, and instead of making meth, it's becoming the kidney fairy. And when I was doing this research, I was like, and this was like the procrastination phase, where I like had enough information about organs that I could have written totally fine story and been okay with it, and just trusted the suspension of disbelief in the audience. But I was like just digging deeper and deeper into this thing, and I thought, okay, I need to call this company back in Texas that like processes pigs for scientific research. And I was living in Germany at the time, and so I did it over email initially because the time zone stuff was just murder. And when I finally got a hold of someone, like it took a while,
Yeah.
like of cold pitching to be like, "Hello, dear, to whom it may concern, I have some questions about your pig carving system for science." And I finally got someone, and he was a little cagey, like a little wary, I could tell. And it was all done over email. And at the end of the day, like I asked about like specifics, like how many inches, like how thin, like what do these like pig slices look like? Because you want to know, right? Because
Yeah.
I thought at the end of the day, like it was 90% procrastination. Like, well, I can't write this. I can't get to starting to write this thing because I don't know how many inches a pig slice is. Because that's like the thing that keeps you from writing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Obviously.
And I thought it was going to just blow this story wide open, like unlock it creatively. Creatively? Woo, that's rough. Creatively, we'll go with that. I thought it was going to bust it wide open, and then so I emailed, and basically I got a very polite but curt, please don't bother us, like we don't have time for this kind of thing. And I think like the real answer is that they just did not have time for this kind of thing, and like who cares like who this person is that's asking these questions. And then there is like a small part of me that wonders if they were like fearful that I was from like PETA or something, and I was trying to like open the door to like ask them about their whole setup and like get in and do some bad investigative reporting. And I can tell you, science labs of Houston, that that's it was just for this dumb story. Like I swear.
Well, that's mostly my audience, so I think they will be relieved to finally settle this.
Yes, Dr. Chalmers. I assure you, sir.
Maybe they thought you were planning on doing something else with this knowledge.
Oh my gosh, I never even thought about that. See, I thought they were going to be like self-interested in like, we got to protect us. But I didn't think that there would be like some, because there's got to be some stray wackadoos that are calling to figure out what to do with these big things.
How do you think Ed Gein figured it out, man? He called places. He did his research.
It was pretty academic, that Ed Gain.
Yeah, he emailed. Nope, he did not email.
Faxed.
He faxed questions.
Yeah.
I'm just writing this short story, but how would I make a lampshade out of flesh? Just throwing that crazy idea out, Phil.
Yeah. Just curious to, to whom it may concern. Like that's like the weird nature of, especially now that like all your search stuff gets saved and then it gets fed back to you. Like when you're doing research, it just basically busts your entire algorithm, right? Like the weird stuff that you're Googling. So you got to get used to that. That's just the whole game of writing. Like I was the other day, I Googled what is a horse head called because
What?
yeah, I didn't know.
Does it have a specific name?
Yeah, it's a muzzle.
Oh, I would have just called it a head.
See, and I probably could have just called it a head, Max, but this is what I do. It's a lot easier to Google about horse heads and then look up good horse videos than write the story. Because writing the story is effort, right? It takes work, and Googling and watching horse videos is feels like research.
Do you have an actual phobia of one day waking up in a bathtub without a kidney?
I don't. It's not like a genuine fear for me, and I don't know if it like is that stuff like in my research. I haven't really found that that's a thing
I have
at
no
all.
idea. I know that's how a really good novel opens called "Kiss Me, Judas" by a man whose name I am blanking on because I've been awake a long time. But yeah, that's a good book.
Totally, totally fine. You at least like name checked the book and called it really good. So, but no, it's not a fear for me exactly because I think it's in that like realm of urban legend where I don't think it's really realistic. But I wonder, like, I wonder if like urban legend wise, like if people have done it because of the urban legend. Do you know what I mean? Like it got born out of this fake thing, this like story that cropped up, and then people were like, "Huh, I guess I'll try that." But I don't know. It seems really like you would die. Like you would go septic. Like you wouldn't wake up in the ice bath. You'd be dead.
My whole thing is like, how do you get that body in the hotel, right? I mean, you have to check in. What are you dragging this body like in a suitcase?
Well, it's not like I mean they're not going to the embassy suites or whatever, right? I mean they're going to like the roadside magic motel
Good point.
where it's lax. So like back when I first had this idea in college, it was when I was taking a screenplay writing class, and the professor of the class actually is Bob Darden at Baylor University, and so his name appears in the book, or in the short story. I'm carrying on a tradition made incredibly plain by two other alumni who had Bob Darden as a teacher, who have killed the first person who dies in all of their movies is always named Darden. So if you watch 310 to Yuma or Wanted, those movies, it's always the main character Darden, and they always die first. And so I'm carrying on that tradition by bringing in a character named Darden. But when I first came up with this idea, I was in this class, and I ended up going to a writing partner of mine. His name's Walt Williams, and we were kind of messing around with it, but it didn't go anywhere. We just kind of fooled around with it like you would college style. And one of the kind of side avenues that he jumped down that we were like super engaged with that never made it to this future story was this idea that like she was going to have to basically like get initiated into this crew of organ harvesters and that she was going to have to like pick up a guy at a bar and bring him back to the hotel and do just that, basically. And so one of my favorite things about it was he always had this little like complete comedy of errors element to it, where she had basically like drugged him and had him all ready, and like they didn't have any ice. That was the problem. That was like the I Love Lucy element was like, no ice. How are we going to dump this dude in a bathtub if we don't have the ice? And so it was like this sequence of her like dragging this huge hotel sheet filled with ice from the ice machine back to the hotel room to try and fill up a bathtub full. And we had like two endings on that where it was either going to be like legit, like she had, and that was always the tough part, right? It was like, oh man, like promising doctor who just has a bunch of money, like a bunch of debt, and has to get into this dark world. It was like, are we really going to have her like almost murder a person as like one of the entry points into this world? It was like, that seems really unbelievable. And so we kind of changed it around where it became like the guy who she picked up was kind of in on it, and it was like a whole like, gotcha, like you're initiated, like a jumping in kind of thing. But it never made it past that idea phase because it never synced in. And then once I started doing this short story, there was just no room for it.
Right. That's really funny. I imagine most of the ice would have melted by the time she got to the room.
Yeah, I mean that definitely adds to it. Like I think his description was about how it was like basically like sopping wet and completely just this huge mess. And it was basically like, I don't remember, we had someone just like castigate her for just being like, oh, this is a rookie mistake. Like you're gonna steal a kidney, you bring your own ice. That's the rule.
Man, I hope one day I wake up in a bathtub missing a kidney.
Wait, is it okay? So you asked me if this is a phobia of mine. Is this like a desire of yours?
I mean, I just think it would make Phil an interesting tweet.
Is that even a story? Like, it's not even an interesting story to tell my friends. Just gotta get that tweet.
Gotta go viral.
I feel like if you could just tweet it out, like fictionally.
I can't get called out and have no evidence to back my truth up. I have to have it actually happen.
You can. I mean, if someone calls you out and says, "Hey, what proof do you have?" You can take a picture of you not having a kidney.
That's a good point.
So like, no more kidney. Like, here's a photo of my bed. There's no kidney on it. It's gone.
I'll just block them if they ask me.
Yeah, that's another. I mean, that's a popular way to do business on Twitter. So.
All right. Well, this has been a blast. Have we even said what the name of the story is at this point?
No, I'm incredibly bad at PR. So, the name of the story is As Well as the Infirm. And just a quick little tip on that. I struggled to find a name for a really long time. The working title was Dark Market, which is terrible. Just not a good name. Double plus bad. And so I looked to the Hippocratic Oath to just see, like I like referencing things in titles. And so I looked in the Hippocratic Oath and found this section of it that has this little phrase, as well as the infirm. And I thought, oh, great. There's like at least 2, maybe 3 meanings in there. So
nice.
It was a perfect little. So I plucked it out of the Hippocratic Oath and then left the Hippocratic Oath in a bathtub full of ice. It all worked out.
I would have suggested calling it "Whoops, My Kidney."
That's the Max Booth. That's like the version from the other side of it. Whoops, My Kidney is like the victim's version of this whole story, which I think should be written also. It has its day.
I agree. How can folks find you online?
So I'm also on Twitter, sadly, at Scott M, as in Michael, Beggs, and my last name is Beggs. And then you can go to scottbeggs.com, which I tend to post up stuff on there a handful of times. I write for an edit for Mental Floss, and then I've got work at Nerdist and Slash Film and Vanity Fair and a couple of other places. And I have a story in Mythic Magazine number 5 is another most recent thing. So those are all some good places to find me.
Hell yeah. Well, thanks again for coming on and doing this, Scott. This has been fun.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it, especially because you kind of put yourself out there for someone to attack you and steal your kidney.
What? Well, All right. Thank you for listening to a new episode of Ghoulish. If you liked what you just listened to, hey, why not go leave a review on iTunes? Leave a little review. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/PMM Publishing. I have a new book coming out pretty soon called Touch the Night. You can pre-order that from Cemetery Dance. I just released a new novella called We Need to Do Something about a family stuck in a bathroom. And through my small press, Perpetual Notion Machine, we just published the debut novella from Michael David Wilson called The Girl in the Video. So yeah, go get that. It's a good book. People like it, including me. And I wouldn't lie to you. Would I?